I'm hungry, Mommy. Please help me. Mommy, I don't know what to do. I'm so hungry. I feel like I will die. Please help me. Please give me food. Just something. Anything. His tears fell into the plate as he held it with both hands. 7-year-old Emeka said these words with shaking lips as he sat on the bare floor of the small, dark room behind the house. The room was full of old buckets, dusty clothes, and torn bags, but to him it was his only safe place. His little eyes were red and puffy from crying. His ribs stuck out from his chest like sticks, and his belly made loud, hungry sounds. It had been almost 2 days since he last ate anything. Every time he swallowed, it felt like fire in his throat. But the worst pain wasn't in his body. It was in his heart. The pain of being left out and forgotten. Since his mother died 3 months ago, life had turned into a daily nightmare. His father had married again quickly, and Madame Amina, his new stepmother, moved in with her 2 children. From the very first day, Emeka knew he was not wanted. What he didn't know was how deep and mean the pain would go. Madame Amina treated him like a bug. Every morning, she would give her own children big plates of hot food, fried eggs, and sweet drinks. But when it came to Emeka, she would act like he wasn't there. Even if he said good morning, she would make a hissing sound and walk past him. If he asked for food, she would beat him with a broom and call him names like useless boy or bastard. His father barely said a word. He just sat in silence, staring at his phone or lost in thought. At first, Emeka tried to understand. Maybe his father was also hurting from losing his wife. Maybe he just didn't notice what was happening. But one day, after seeing the bruises on his back from Madame Amina's beating, his father looked at him, sighed, and said coldly, "Just do whatever she says. Don't cause trouble." That was when Emeka felt his heart break for the second time. He wasn't just without a mother, he was also without a father, even though his father was alive. Every day after school, while other children ran home to warm meals and open arms, Emeka walked slowly, dragging his feet like a child walking to punishment. When he reached the house, his step-siblings would be playing with toys, laughing and watching cartoons in the living room. If he tried to sit near them or even peek through the door, they would shout, "Go away, you smell," and push him out. Sometimes they poured water on the floor and told him to clean it while they watched him and laughed. Once, his stepbrother even kicked his food bowl away when he thought Emeka might get some leftover food. His only friends were the shadows in the small room. At night, he would curl up on the floor with a torn cloth and talk to the photo of his dead mother he had hidden in an old cookie tin. "Mommy, I miss you. They don't want me here. I'm hungry. I'm so hungry." But there was never an answer, just quiet, painful quiet. But something strange happened one afternoon. It was around 3 p.m. The sun was hot and the house was quiet. The power wasn't on, and Madame Amina had taken her children out. Emeka hadn't eaten since the day before. His stomach was tight, his head spinning. He was so weak he could barely walk. He took a small plastic plate, the one he used to eat from when his mother was alive, and slowly walked to the small inner room where his mother used to sleep. Dust covered everything, and spider webs hung in the corners. Her framed picture still hung on the wall, her face calm, smiling. That smile, oh, how he missed it. Tears came to his eyes as he knelt before the picture and whispered, "Mommy, I don't know what to do. I'm so hungry. I feel like I will die. Please help me. Please give me food. Just something, anything." His tears fell into the plate as he held it with both hands. Then something happened that no one could explain. As he kept crying, head down and eyes closed, he felt the plate grow warm in his hands. He opened his eyes slowly and gasped. The plate was full. White rice, fresh, steaming rice with pieces of meat on top. The smell filled the room like a nice breeze. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. He dropped the plate on the floor with a loud clatter and stumbled backwards, heart beating fast. "What is this? Am I dreaming?" he whispered. His legs were shaking, his hands trembling. The tears that now rolled down his face were not from sadness, but fear, shock, and confusion. He looked at the picture again. His mother's smile, was it the same as before, or was it wider, brighter? He didn't know. He didn't understand what just happened, but one thing was clear: someone had answered his cry. Emeka sat there frozen, his eyes fixed on the plate of steaming white rice that had suddenly appeared before him. The nice smell filled the room, and for a second he thought he was dreaming. His heart raced, his mouth fell open. "Is this real?" he whispered to himself. He looked again at the picture of his dead mother on the wall, her smile still gentle, her eyes still warm, like she was watching him. His hands shook as he reached out and slowly grabbed the plate. His chest rose and fell with fear and hunger, but hunger was stronger. With slow steps, he moved to the middle of the dusty floor and sat cross-legged. His eyes never left his mother's picture. "Thank you, Mommy," he whispered as tears rolled down his cheeks. Then he started eating, first slowly, then faster. His hands moved wildly. He stuffed the rice into his mouth like his life depended on it. He didn't even chew well. Every bite was like medicine to his weak body. He ate and ate until the plate was empty, not a single grain left. When he was done, he leaned back and placed the empty plate beside him. His small stomach had stretched and was now round and full. He lay down on the cold floor, let out a tired sigh, and fell into sleep. Deep, peaceful sleep, the kind he hadn't had in months. But peace never lasted long in Emeka's world. A few hours later, sharp slaps landed on his cheeks. 1, 2, 3. He woke up with a loud cry, confused and scared. Standing above him was Madame Amina, his stepmother, her eyes full of anger. Her hands were raised again. Behind her, his two step-siblings were laughing loudly, pointing at him like he was a crazy person. "You, this useless boy," Madame Amina shouted. "Who gave you food? Where did you get rice to eat?" Emeka looked around, confused. The plate was still there on the floor. I, he began to stutter. His lips shook, his body trembled, his face was still puffy from sleep. "Answer me, idiot," she screamed, pulling him by the ear. "Who gave you rice?" Emeka's lips trembled as he pointed slowly at his mother's picture. It was my mommy," he said almost in a whisper. At first there was silence, then the room burst into laughter, loud, mean laughter. His step-siblings laughed so hard they fell on each other. "His dead mother cooked rice for him," they shouted. Madame Amina's laughter was the loudest. She bent over, holding her stomach. "So now ghosts are feeding you? Ah, you are not only useless, but crazy," she yelled. But suddenly her face turned cold again. "Come and show me where you stole the food from," she shouted, grabbing him by the ear and dragging him toward the kitchen. "I didn't steal it. I didn't. Mommy gave me." Emeka kept saying, tears falling from his eyes. "Lie again and I will blind you today," she screamed. They got to the kitchen. No pot of rice, nothing cooked. The cupboard was locked just as she left it. The fridge was empty. There was no sign of rice anywhere. That made her even angrier. "So you're using tricks now, Abby? Ghost rice, you are becoming a thief and a liar." Without another word, she picked up a long broom and began to beat him. 1 hit, 2, 3, 10. Emeka screamed, begged, cried, "Please, please, I didn't steal." But it didn't matter. His back burned, his arms shook, his legs gave way. Still, she beat him until her arms were tired. Then she pushed him back into the store and slammed the door. His step-siblings were still laughing as they went back to the living room. "Ghost boy," they called him, "hungry thief." That night, the house was quiet, but Emeka's heart was loud. He curled himself up on the floor, hugging his knees. The rice he had eaten earlier still sat in his stomach, but now it hurt. Not because of the food, but because of the beating, the shame and the loneliness. He buried his face in his hands and wept, his small body shaking with pain. "Mommy," he sobbed, "please take me with you. I'm tired." His voice faded as he cried and cried. Unknown to him, someone was there, a soft presence standing silently in the corner of the room. His mother, her spirit stood by the wall, right beside her picture, watching her little boy with a heart full of sadness. She couldn't touch him, she couldn't wipe his tears. But her soul hurt. Her eyes shined with tears. Her hands were folded over her chest. If she could speak, she would have said, "My son, I'm here. I never left you." But Emeka couldn't see her. He couldn't feel her. He only felt pain. Outside the room, life went on. The TV was loud in the living room. Laughter came from his step-siblings as they watched cartoons and ate meat pies. Madame Amina drank her malt like nothing happened. But in the little room, a boy cried himself to sleep on the floor, hugging an empty plate beside a ghost no one else could see. And the night grew deeper. It was a Saturday morning. The sun had not yet risen fully, but Emeka was already awake, cleaning the yard and washing plates like he was told. His small fingers moved fast. His legs were tired. But there was something different about this morning. There was power, and that meant something very special to him. Cartoons. His step-siblings, Kofi and Bintu, loved cartoons. Every Saturday morning, they would sit in the living room, laughing loudly at the funny characters on the TV. Emeka always listened from the room where he slept, picturing the colors, the laughter, the fun. Today, he told himself, maybe, just maybe, they will let me join them. So he worked hard. He washed the plates carefully, swept the backyard, picked up the trash, and even arranged the firewood behind the kitchen. Everything his stepmother usually asked him to do. He didn't want to give her any reason to shout at him. His heart was beating fast with hope. If I finish early, he thought, I can laugh too today. When he finished, he walked quietly to the living room. Laughter came from inside. His step-siblings were rolling on the couch, kicking their legs in the air. So funny, Kofi shouted. Play it again, Bintu said, almost choking with laughter. Emeka smiled slowly. It was a nervous smile, the kind that shows more fear than joy. He didn't want to be shouted at. Carefully, he opened the door and crept in. His small legs bent as he sat on the floor, far away from them. He kept his head down, his ears wide open. The cartoon was even funnier than he had imagined. But peace does not last long in the life of a child like Emeka. Why is he here? Bintu said suddenly, holding her nose. He smells, Kofi added, making a face. Emeka quickly turned his head. Please, he begged gently, I won't stay close. I just want to watch. I've finished my work, please. His voice shook. His eyes were already watering. He just wanted to feel like a child again, even for 5 minutes. But Kofi stood up and walked toward him. I said leave. You're not one of us, he shouted and pushed him hard. He fell to the floor with a thud. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He simply stood up and walked out slowly, tears already wetting his cheeks. He went into the small room where he stayed. He sat on the same dusty floor and looked up at his mother's picture again. The same soft smile, the same kind eyes. Mommy, he said, wiping his nose, why did you leave me here? Why didn't you take me with you? His voice broke into sobs. They hate me, Mommy. They hate me so much. I didn't do anything wrong. He talked and cried, holding his knees tightly. I just want to watch cartoons. Just cartoons, Mummy. Is that too much? Suddenly, a loud voice came from outside. Emeka, his stepmother screamed. He jumped up in fear and ran outside. Yes, Ma, he answered. Go and arrange the yam in the back room and make sure you don't break any, she shouted from the kitchen, banging a pot. Yes, Ma, he replied and ran off quickly. He didn't want more trouble. After putting the yams in order and clearing the broken wood at the back, he wiped his sweaty face with his shirt. The sun was high already. He hadn't eaten. Not even water had touched his lips. His stomach was empty again. He walked back into the room to rest for a minute. As he opened the door, something stopped him. There, just in front of his mother's picture, was another plate of food. Hot, steaming red rice, thick red stew, a boiled egg, a plastic spoon. He froze. His heart skipped a beat. His eyes opened wide. He looked around. No one was there. He slowly walked toward it. His legs shook. His lips parted as tears filled his eyes. He dropped to his knees, hands shaking. Thank you, Mommy, he whispered, looking at the picture. Thank you. Then, just like the day before, he sat down and began to eat. Slowly at first, then faster. Then, like he was starving, every bite brought tears to his eyes. The food tasted like home. It tasted like safety. Like love. He was still eating, almost halfway done, when suddenly the door creaked open. He turned. Madame Amina stood there, her lips curved into a wicked, slow smile. Her eyes looked at the food. The spoon. The boy. Well, she said, walking in. So this is where you've been hiding to eat? Emeka's heart dropped. The spoon fell from his hand. She folded her arms and moved closer. "Where did you get this food?" she asked in a cold voice. He couldn't speak. "Answer me," she barked. He opened his mouth, trembling. I didn't steal it. Mommy gave it to me." "Which mommy?" she asked with a mocking laugh. "My real mommy," he whispered. "She gave me food." Madame Amina laughed, loud and evil. "You mean the one in that photo? So she left heaven to cook rice and egg for you?" The step-siblings were already gathering by the door, laughing and pointing. "See this one?" Bintu laughed. "His ghost mommy is now a cook." Kofi grabbed her stomach, laughing so hard she bent down, but Madame Amina wasn't laughing anymore. She picked up a stick near the door. "If you don't tell me now who gave you this food, I will beat you till you forget your name." "I don't know," Emeka cried, covering his head. "I didn't steal it, I swear. Mommy just gives it to me." "Let me see that mommy feed you while you're crying," she shouted and brought the stick down hard. Emeka cried out in pain as the stick landed on his back, his arms, his legs. He couldn't explain what he didn't understand. He was beaten until he couldn't cry anymore. That night, when everyone had eaten and gone to bed, Emeka lay curled up in the corner of the room. His body hurt, his eyes were swollen, his stomach was empty again, and then something moved. A quiet breeze, a soft whisper. The room got cold for a second. Standing beside him was his mother's ghost. She looked at her son, tears in her eyes. Her hands glowed faintly, her face full of sadness. But Emeka couldn't see her. He only shivered, held his blanket tighter, and cried into his knees. "Mommy, please," he whispered in his sleep. "Don't leave me again." The ghost of his mother watched him, her heart breaking. She reached out her hand, but it passed through him. She stood there in silence, watching, waiting. Even in death, a mother's love still speaks, still fights, still protects. Days passed after the second miracle meal appeared before Emeka in the little room. That moment still lived in his heart like a hidden light. Days later, Emeka cried again as he ate, whispering, "Thank you, Mommy," between bites. But just as he was about to finish, his stepmother, Madame Amina, walked in with an evil smirk on her face. She didn't say a word right away, just stared at him with eyes full of hate. He quickly dropped the spoon. His hands shook, his small chest rose and fell quickly, afraid of the storm that was about to come. But something stopped her that evening. She looked down at the food, then at Emeka, and just made a hissing sound. She turned and walked away, slamming the door so hard that it made the dust fall from the old ceiling. Emeka's tiny body trembled. He didn't understand why she didn't beat him that day. He thought maybe, just maybe, something had changed. But he was wrong. That same night, far away in the quiet hours between midnight and dawn, something strange happened. Emeka's father, Mr. Ocholi, was fast asleep on the old sofa in the main room. Suddenly, he began to shake. He turned left and right in his sleep. His forehead was wet with sweat. In his dream, he saw his dead wife standing right in front of him, her eyes filled with sadness and quiet power. She wasn't smiling. She said to him clearly, "Ocholi, if you know you cannot take care of my son, take him to my mother. I've been the one feeding him since. Don't wait for me to come for you. I am warning you." Mr. Ocholi sat up right away, gasping, breathing fast. His eyes were wide open. He looked around. He was sweating like someone who ran under the sun. The room was dark. The TV light blinked. His heart pounded loudly. It felt so real, like she had been standing right there. He stood up slowly and walked to the kitchen, poured water into his mouth and shook his head. Just a dream, he told himself, just stress. But it wasn't. Days passed. He didn't take Emeka to his dead wife's mother. He didn't change anything. The boy still slept in the dirty room. He still ate nothing unless the ghost of his mother provided. Madame Amina was still mean, giving her own children chicken and stew, and leaving Emeka to lick his lips in hunger. His father, blind in guilt and fear, said nothing. One quiet night, something strange and powerful happened again. Emeka was fast asleep in the room. His face was buried in his small arms. His lips were dry. His stomach was empty. But his heart was calm in sleep. Then slowly, without waking up fully, his small feet touched the ground. His body rose like something pulled by an invisible rope. His eyes were half open, sleepy, confused, but his legs began to move. He walked slowly, barefooted, out of the room. The night was silent. No one saw him, not Madame Amina, not his father, not his step-siblings. He walked out of the house, into the darkness of the night, the moonlight covering his path like a mother's hand. But he was not alone. His mother's ghost walked ahead of him, glowing faintly, peaceful, sad, strong. She didn't speak. She didn't look back. She only led the way, and her son followed like a sheep that trusted the voice of love. He didn't see her, but his spirit knew her. His soul remembered her warmth. He walked for hours, barefooted, tired, half asleep. But his legs didn't stop. He crossed a small bush path, passed 2 quiet streets, walked down a sandy road that led to the edge of the village. Dogs barked, but didn't chase him. Cold chilled him, but didn't freeze him. God and love carried him. Finally, around 3 in the morning, he arrived at a small clay house, painted with old blue color. There were little flowers in front, and a lantern was still burning inside. It was the home of Mama Oyibo, his grandmother, his dead mother's mother. She heard a knock on the door, again and again, soft like a feather falling. She woke up, confused. "Who is knocking at this time?" she said to herself. She tied her wrapper quickly and opened the wooden door. There, standing weakly at the entrance, was her grandson, Emeka, barefoot, dusty, sleepy and thin. "Mama," he whispered, tears already falling from his eyes before he could say more. Mama Oyibo froze. She dropped to her knees and shouted, "Jesus, hey, Jesus Christ." She held him close, crying so loud that neighbors turned on their lights from afar. She placed her hand on his chest and cried harder. "Who brought you here, Emeka? Who brought you here in the middle of the night?" But the boy didn't know how to answer. He didn't even know how he got there. He just said softly, "Mommy said I should come." Mama Oyibo wept and kissed his forehead again and again. She held him like her own baby, like a lost piece of her heart had returned. Somewhere under the old mango tree in front of the house stood the ghost of his mother watching. A small smile spread across her face, her eyes soft with peace. Her work was done. Her child was safe. She turned back into the shadows and disappeared. When a mother speaks from the grave, even the living tremble. The morning after Emeka was led out of the house by his dead mother's spirit and safely arrived at his grandmother's place, a strange thing happened. His father, Mr. Ocholi, woke up feeling different. He sat up on the bed, looked around and tried to call his wife, but no sound came out of his mouth. "Amina! Amina!" He tried to shout again, but nothing. He pressed his ears, shook his head, clapped loudly near his ears, but everything around him was quiet, terribly quiet. His heart raced. He ran to the mirror, trying to scream, but no words came. His mouth opened, but silence followed. Madame Amina was in the kitchen, boiling yam when she heard heavy footsteps. She turned, and her husband was standing there, face white with fear, sweating all over, trying to speak but failing. "What is it?" she asked. He pointed to his ears. He opened his mouth again. "What's wrong with you? Talk now," she shouted. But he couldn't hear her and he couldn't reply. He started crying. Madame Amina dropped the spoon in her hand and rushed to him. "Is this a joke or what?" she screamed. But this was no joke. Mr. Ocholi had completely lost both his hearing and his ability to speak overnight. They rushed him to hospitals. They called native doctors. They went to churches. But the result was the same. No one could explain what had happened to him. People started to whisper, "Is it punishment? Maybe it's something spiritual. Maybe his dead wife has a hand in this." But Madame Amina didn't care. She stopped feeding his children. She became colder and more wicked by the day. She blamed everything on her husband's first son, Emeka, even though the boy was no longer around. Months passed. The man who once walked proudly with a smile now sat quietly in a corner of the house. No job anymore, no voice, no sound. He had also lost his job because of his condition. He couldn't attend meetings, couldn't work, couldn't do his job. One cold morning, without warning, Madame Amina packed all her clothes and put them into a big bag. She pulled out her suitcase, gathered her jewelry, and got dressed in a fine gown. Her children, Kofi and Bintu, watched her from the hallway. "Where are you going, Mommy?" Bintu asked. But she didn't answer. "Are we following you?" Kofi added. She turned sharply. "No." "Why?" Bintu asked again. Fear in her voice, she snapped. "Because I'm not your father's nurse. I didn't come to suffer. I'm not about to raise children I didn't beg God for. Let your father take care of you people." With that, she walked out of the house, just like that. She left behind her 2 children, her deaf and mute husband, and the mess she had helped create. Her heart had turned to stone. The man sat by the door and cried silently. He tried to beg her to stay, but only tears and breath came out. His hands shook as he stretched them out toward her, but she didn't turn back. She never looked back. His children ran after her crying, but she didn't care. He was now left to raise the children alone, with no voice, no job, and no help. Far away, in a peaceful yard surrounded by trees and love, Emeka was finally smiling again. He now lived with his grandmother, his mother's mother, who treated him like a treasure. She gave him food, washed his clothes, and told him stories at night about how wonderful his mother was. "You look like her," she would say, touching his cheek gently. Strong, quiet, and full of light. Emeka was now going to school regularly. He played with cousins in the evening and even laughed again. His bad dreams had stopped. He no longer cried to a cold wall or begged an old photo for food. He no longer worked for hours without a thank you. He no longer slept on a dusty floor in a storage room. He was safe. One day, Mr. Ocholi tried to visit and see Emeka, but the grandmother stood by the wooden gate and blocked him. "You lost your voice because you refused to speak for your son," she said firmly. "You lost your hearing because you refused to hear his pain. You left him in the hands of a cruel woman, and now you want to see him? No." He fell to his knees, crying. He tried to explain with hand signs, but the grandmother turned away. "I warned you in that dream." A cold wind whispered behind him. He looked back. There was no one there, but he felt it, the presence of his dead wife, watching, guarding, protecting her son even in death. That night, she appeared again in his dream, but this time she said nothing. She just stood there, looking at him with eyes full of tears. Then she turned and walked away into the light. He woke up crying like a baby, but it was too late. He would never see his son again, and every year, on Emeka's birthday, he would walk to his mother's grave with a plate of rice, kneel beside it and whisper, "Thank you, Mommy, I remember." Because love never dies, and some mothers never stop fighting, even from the other side. If you enjoyed this story, I'm certain you'll enjoy the next one showing on your screen right now. Please click on the thumbnail to watch the next story. I'd appreciate your support. Like this video, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to my channel. See you in my next story. Bye.